are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Ronan Lavelle from ARX and I'm joined today by Daniel Fowle from one of our close technology partners called PointBeyond, who are Microsoft SharePoint integration specialists. And the theme of today's webinar is using SharePoint workflows and digital signature technologies to enable paperless processes and paperless working in the enterprise. So thank you very much for joining today's webinar. The session today is being recorded and you will all be provided with access to that recording later on today. We will also post a recording of the webinar on arx.com a little bit later today as well. Little bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions to ask, and I'm sure you will through today's webinar, we welcome them. But as your lines are muted on today's webinar, we would ask you to type any questions you have in the question dialog box, which you'll find on the right-hand side of your screen. So please feel free to type your questions. We will pick those up and we will answer them at the end of the webinar, if that's okay. Excellent. So to move on, today we're going to talk about essentially using a number of technologies, ECM, we're going to talk about SharePoint today, workflow. There are many different workflow options with SharePoint, but today we're actually going to demonstrate the Nintex solution and the CoSign digital signature solution from ARX. And how we can use these technologies together to really enable digital transformation in the enterprise. By digital transformation, we obviously mean streamlining core content-centric processes that require signatures in general and enable them to remain in electronic and digital format and ultimately to speed up the cycle time of a business process, reduce the cost and the resources required to manage that process. So these are three key enabling technologies, and Daniel is going to give a demonstration later on today showing how all these three technologies come together within a SharePoint environment, and you can use them to significantly and by an order of magnitude improve the efficiency of key signature-dependent processes. So essentially what we're going to talk about today is how we can reduce the time and the effort for these signature-dependent processes in your businesses, whether they are contracts or POs or standard operating procedure documents or anything that requires sign-off or approvals, maybe through workflows, but also with signatures that today may be printed out and then signed in paper with a pen and then scanned back into SharePoint. And if you are in an organization that has lots of those kind of documents, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, millions maybe, then that can really add up and create a significant overhead. So most of the people on today's call, I'm pretty sure, are pretty au fait and familiar with collaboration and ECM platforms like Microsoft SharePoint. We pretty much, I guess, know what workflow is, automating key business processes. But I have to say that we get asked constantly about what a digital signature is. So it's probably worth spending a little bit of time just helping you to understand and define what a digital signature is, and also how it differs from an electronic signature, which is something you may have heard in the marketplace as well. So a digital signature is actually obviously putting a signature in a document, but some time ago, like at the end of the 1990s and the early 2000s, a number of independent experts around the world came together and defined a series of now widely accepted global standards, and they are listed at the top of the screen. So from the National Institute of Standards and Technology in the US, ISO standards, as you are probably aware of, and the W3 consortium, and all these kind of people all basically came together and said, This is what a digital signature is, what it should be, and indeed what it isn't if you provide another type of solution. And in a nutshell, as you may imagine, we are talking about putting a signature in a document. It could be a Microsoft Office document, so Excel spreadsheet or Word document or a PDF, but it could also be within the SharePoint environment, a piece of list data, for instance, a list data item, but it can also be a form, whether that's an InfoPath form, even though Microsoft have announced the sunsetting of that particular solution within SharePoint, but also other third-party forms increasingly going forward, things like Nintex forms, but also K2 smart forms and other form technologies. So a digital signature is made up of two components, the visual part and then actually an invisible part. So the visual part is obviously your graphical signature and maybe some information about who you are and why you signed the document. And critically with a digital signature, the way that it's created, it is able to detect whether any changes or amendments have been made to a signed document. So if the document has been altered after it has been signed, the signature will become invalid and it will not be able to be verified. So it'll either give you a visual mark, like a red X like we see on the screen, or indeed, if it's in an editable file format like Microsoft Word, for instance, it may remove the signature from the document and you will then need to re-sign it. So the invisible part of a digital signature is actually the piece that guarantees the integrity and the identity of the signer. The global standards and therefore the legal and legislative frameworks that have been defined that govern the use of digital signatures as a legally enforceable mechanism to sign a document basically say that in order to guarantee the identity of a signer, you really need to be using a thing called a digital certificate. Now, many of us know digital certificates from websites. We go to many trusted websites and we see a little green padlock from Microsoft or Google or whatever. And same kind of technology. The server technology that we're going to show you today from ARX, the CoSign solution, actually is a standards compliant, what they call certificate authority. So we generate our own certificates that conform to the international standards. And that basically is like your identity card or your passport. And it's typically issued to your employer, your company, but also to you, the individual. And then essentially we use encryption technologies to lock and seal that certificate so that it can only ever have been you, the signer, signing that document. So you can present information to an auditor or a regulator or a lawyer that basically proves that you were the person that signed that document. You can record the reason why you signed a document, and you can verify whether the document has been changed or not been changed since it was signed. And those are typically the three things that auditors, regulators, and lawyers essentially want and need to see. Anything else about location and IP addresses is all nice information, but not actually required by the current generation of standards and legal frameworks. And just a little word on the legal frameworks. I don't intend to spend a lot of time today on these, but just suffice it to say that electronic and advanced electronic and digital signatures are widely accepted in about 175 jurisdictions around the world. So just a little bit of trivia for you. On today's webinar, we have over 50 people from pretty much all over the world. I have to say, apart from North America, I think we maybe have one or two people who have dialed in very early, but we have obviously a lot of people from the UK and continental Europe, but also from continental Africa as well. So very welcome on today's call. And in many of your jurisdictions, you will have national laws and legislative frameworks that protect the use of electronic signatures in the workplace, and essentially give them the same legal weight as a paper signed contract. In the European Union, there's actually a very old 1999 and 1993 EU directive on the use of electronic signatures, and each nation state in the European Union have since then enacted their own local legislation. Some industry verticals and regulators also have defined best practice procedures and regulations that if you want to work in a paperless way, you need to be using a digital signature solution, like with the FDA, for instance, in the United States for the Food and Drug Administration, but also many other industry regulators as well. Quick word on that, on the EU topic. We expect in the next 12 to 18 months to see a new generation of EU directive being approved, hopefully before the European Parliament elections this year, but if not, probably next year. And like with a number of other areas that they're looking to re-examine, like for instance data protection and data privacy is another key area that they're looking at. They are looking to unify these legal and legislative frameworks. So at the moment, Greece, Germany, France, the UK, Luxembourg, Holland, for instance, are able to enact their own local interpretation of these laws. Going forward, basically the new directive will be a consistent standard across all EU countries. And that is actually just a very good thing for the adoption and uptake of this kind of technology. So actually, the legal framework has existed for many years, and as you may understand and have guessed already from your own organizations, and if you're a service provider, maybe from your clients and customers' organizations, this is ultimately a cultural acceptance thing. And, 10 odd years ago when they created the ability to support digital signatures, I think in general, your business users and your managers probably were just not culturally and mentally ready to replace pen and paper with an electronic or digital signature. That is very much changing with the way that we do business today. Most content originates in electronic format. We use email, we use workflows. Today's topic, we're going to talk about SharePoint with workflows, with digital signatures, and people really want to do things quickly, efficiently, but also in a very controlled manner. And if you have an electronic process today that routes an electronic document like a contract or a purchase order or an annual staff performance appraisal from HR, for instance, around the organization, and then you need to basically print it out in order to confirm and sign that document, you are essentially breaking the process and you're losing control and governance and potentially compliance and all that kind of stuff. So there are a lot of very good reasons as to why this is a very good idea. But also clearly we work in a multi-device environment now. We work on laptops and tablet devices, mobile devices, and all these kind of things are driving the demand to be able to sign stuff on the fly wherever you are, in an airport lounge, from another office, or even from home, wherever you want to work. So we did a bit of research last year on the extent of the problems of paper in the enterprise, and AIM is an organization that many of you will know, the sort of Content Management Association, and we did a joint study with AIM about a year ago, and it basically showed that about half of all documents in an enterprise require some kind of approval or sign-off, and about half of those documents themselves are printed out in order to get those approvals and sign-offs, and that it takes a very long time to get signatures on documents. On average, 1 day to get one signature, and 2 to 3 days to get more than one signature. So by printing a document, printing a document out and signing it, and then having to scan it and upload it, archive the paper or throw the paper away, and then send the electronic document on its way, has become arduous and complex and expensive, and essentially very inefficient. We also did some studies in the UK market, and the results were pretty similar. About 80% of companies said that they printed documents out just to sign them. But equally, they reprinted documents if there were more than one signatory on a document. So it may be sent to a distribution group on email, for instance, and the next recipient would reprint the document, sign it, scan it, send it to the next person, and then they would print it again. So that is obviously extremely inefficient, and within the guise of Microsoft SharePoint and information governance and so on, all these kind of things just enable you to lose control and increase process cycle times and all this kind of stuff, which we're trying to reduce, obviously. So I think it might be an appropriate time. We have a little poll here. These are completely anonymous and confidential, but be very interesting to see for yourself, but also for the other attendees, where you think the key drivers for this kind of technology would be. So in the context of using, say, a repository like SharePoint with a workflow tool and a signing tool, where would you see the key drivers from your organizations being if you were to adopt this kind of technology? And feel free to select any of the options. I think it's a multi-choice option. And I'll give you about another 10 or 15 seconds on that. Excellent. Okay, so super. I think I can hopefully share the results of this on screen. But so it's probably not a major surprise, but I think probably all of these areas are important for the people on today's call. This is ultimately about getting rid of paper or unnecessary paper in a key business process, and therefore that also includes improves efficiency, but obviously control over your information as well. So thank you for that. Okay, so you know, for some organizations who have done empirical studies about this kind of stuff, you know, it's not that difficult to imagine that paper in its own right is a very expensive and inefficient medium to do business across borders or even across different offices, and it costs a lot of money to process and administer paper, whether that's internal within, say, an HR department or within your key externally facing functions like procurement or your commercial functions or legal, etc. So, you know, some organizations like in the life sciences sector, like Pfizer, for instance, reckon the all-in cost, the loaded cost of securing signatures on documents costs around $30 per document. So that's a mixture of real costs like couriers and postage and printing and paper, but also management time, administration effort, and storage, all that kind of stuff. So these are you know, really quite significant when you imagine that an organization like Pfizer will have, you know, many millions of documents every year that need to be controlled, but also you know, signed every year. So in your own organizations, you might be thinking about the cost justification and the business case. You know, if you are a high document volume business and today you have a large number of signature dependent processes, then, you know, these kind of technologies that we're going to show you today will be hopefully very compelling for you. So to that point, this is ultimately about getting rid of unnecessary paper in the enterprise. I guess specifically it's about getting rid of the print, sign, scan process that many people go through. So we're not necessarily saying get rid of all paper, saying some people have an attachment to that, even though you know, we try and run our own business as much as possible on a paperless strategy. But then, you know, this kind of technology is quite often deployed across an enterprise, but in phases. And it's important maybe to understand in the context of your own business where you feel this technology would have the greatest impact and the best benefit. So for many organizations, that may well be either a controlled or a regulated process to start off with. So, you know, quality assurance for a life sciences company or an energy company, for instance, who have control documents like standard operating procedures that need to be reviewed consistently. They're highly audited and regulated, and they need to be signed off by lots of different people. Those are classic phase one kind of deployment documents. It could also be, the key processes in your organization that either make you money or cost you money, procurement and sales, or the commercial processes, for instance. But also, as we're witnessing a huge uptake in interest in the market, as the world slowly comes out of this awful recession we've been in for the last 4 or 5 years, we're seeing a huge uptake in recruitment for large organizations, and in key functions like HR, where companies are now beginning to employ very large numbers of people. Trying to streamline that process of things like onboarding of new staff is becoming quite a challenge. So the ability to enable both internal staff members, also external stakeholders, to sign a document in 5 minutes instead of 5 days is really what we're talking about here. And you can imagine that finance and legal and other internal functions also have lots of content. HR is a classic example. We're going to show you some examples of that in Daniel's demonstration in a moment. But these kind of functions that generate lots of templates, lots of documents that today may require people to review, sign, and submit documents, forms, waiver forms, all these kind of things to the person who sent them. So in terms of a signature, what we're talking about in a document is, this is my digital signature, and this is what would appear in a document that would be signed, say, within Microsoft SharePoint, maybe through a workflow solution as well. So by combining these technologies together, we can enable a user to sign a document in a matter of seconds instead of minutes or hours. And that can be as easy as literally telling the workflow engine to alert the end user by email, Ronan, please can you review this purchase order, this compliance statement, this contract, whatever it is, and click on a link in an email, go into, say, a SharePoint environment, but again, not have to download the document or open it, or just view it online in a controlled environment, and approve the workflow task and sign the document all in one very simple procedure. So this is really what we're talking about. The key thing is speed and efficiency and control, but also defensibility from a legal and a regulatory perspective. So these signatures we're going to show you today can be verified by any party, independent of ARX and the CoSign solution. So once they're generated, they live in your PDF documents and your Word documents forevermore. So actually, yesterday we were presenting a keynote presentation to an association of records managers in the life sciences sector. They were particularly concerned and interested in the retention of long-term business records, maybe that are very highly regulated and audited, where you may have a clinical trial submission and test results, or some kind of quality management document that needs to be retained for a long period of time. And I'm talking 15, 20, 25 years. And if you are not going to archive paper, how does the electronic record that has been signed with the digital signature stand up to scrutiny in 20 years' time if there's ever a legal challenge, for instance? So this is really what the CoSign solution is built for, and it's what the international standards help you to define. So it's the ability to create a signature that binds the user to that document, and then it lives in perpetuity forever in that document. So before I hand over to Daniel, I'm just going to quickly just show you how this works. So the signature that we see here is basically generated on a server. That server is very enterprise friendly and very information security friendly, so it can be deployed within your environment and behind your firewall if necessary on a server appliance. or it can be in our secure data center. So it's a hybrid cloud architecture, actually, where your Microsoft Office documents that you want to sign or your PDF documents can be signed on the desktop in 5 seconds, or as we're going to show you today, within a Microsoft SharePoint environment. We do, by the way, support many different ECM solutions. So OpenText, Alfresco, Box.com, Autonomy iManage, many different environments as well. But SharePoint is by far our most widely deployed integration. So what we're going to show you today is basically signing a consortium of documents, so PDFs, Word documents, etc., in a Microsoft SharePoint environment and using a workflow tool. So this could be SharePoint's own workflow. It could be, tools like K2's workflow. But actually today we're just going to show the Nintex solution, but it could be any of these solutions, just for your information. But also, if you do travel, if your key business colleagues and stakeholders travel frequently, they can do this on any mobile device as well. So I think, Dan, if it's okay with you, I'm going to change over the view to you, and we're going to go through a little demonstration to show you how all this comes together in a seamless process. So we're going to look at some HR-based processes using SharePoint as a core repository, and looking at workflows and digital signatures as well. So over to you, Dan.
Yeah, hi everyone. So today I'm going to show you through a demo of an HR policy document. The particular example we're going to be using today is, bear with me 1 second, is a code of ethics document. So what you're looking at here is a SharePoint 2013 site. We've got Nintex Workflow installed, and we've got the CoSign connector to Nintex installed. So with this solution, it allows us to put together quite an end-to-end solution for your digital signatures, and it can all be done in the browser. And on top of that, it can all be done without any custom development. So before we do this, I'm just going to quickly show you our blog site. This is our PointBeyond blog. Ronan will send out a link to this when he sends out the video of the webinar. But what we've put together is we've put together a little calculator using Nintex Live Form, and this allows you to, well, this really assists you with building your business case. So there's a number of different criteria that you can modify. So you can change any of these values. What this will do is it'll give you a cost, an overall cost per signed document, per month, and per year. And then if you want, you can put in your company details, and that will come through to us. So this is just a useful tool to help you build your business case. It should be easy because, as we say in our blog post, 81% of companies that deploy digital signatures receive a return on investment within 12 months, which is a staggering statistic, really. So I'm just going to go back to our environment. I think my VPN's gone to sleep, so let me just restart this. Give me 1 second. So I'm just going to disconnect this and reconnect. That usually does the job. And then we can get started with the demo. Apologies for the delay.
While Dan is just dealing with his gremlins there, just remind you, if you have any questions, there's on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll find a question dialog box, and if you have any burning questions you'd like us to answer about SharePoint or workflows or digital signatures, type your question and we'll pick those up in a moment.
Okay, great. That's done the job, so we're back up and running. Okay, so as I said, this is just an out-of-the-box SharePoint 2013 site. We've got our various other products installed on it that allow us to put together this solution. So I'm just going to take you through this example, which, as I said, is for a HR code of ethics and whistleblower policy. So this is a document that needs to go out to every member of staff. They could be dispersed in many different geographical locations. You can imagine with a paper-based solution, this is quite a big task. You know, you've got your printing, posting, you have to have people in the regional offices responsible to chase these documents, to collate them, to send them back. What should be a very simple process is actually can be very complicated and very time-consuming if you're not using digital signatures. So I'm just going to take you through the basic structure of this site. So we've got an HR policy library here, and this is where we're actually going to create an individual document for every user. And then in this document, in this library, we have a workflow running in the background that's actually going to assign signature tasks for these users. So in your company, you can send them an email, and they can open up the task, and they can sign their document in the browser. They don't have to have any software installed locally. It's all browser-based, and it's all very simple and intuitive to use. So let me just go to the employee list. So for this demo, I've created a list of dummy employees. In the real-world environment, you would probably use your Active Directory, but we can also, with Nintex Workflow, we can also query a number of other data sources. So if you've got this information in a SQL table somewhere, we can query that. We can query LDAP, or we can query the user profile service within SharePoint. So I've just pulled together a few different fields here. So we've got some job titles, we've got the department, and we've got the manager. So this allows us to create a two-stage signature process. This document's going to go to the employee first, and then it's going to go to their manager. So let's go through to the admin library. So this is where we actually store our documents that we're going to use for this signature task. We've got a number of different documents in here, so you could build this solution out to work for all your different signature tasks. So you can imagine you can have a whole number of different libraries and different documents in here, and it gives you a central place to manage all these different these different jobs. So I'm just going to show you the workflow before we actually kick it off. So if you're familiar with Nintex, you can go to the library tools, and in the workflow settings, we've got an option to manage workflows with Nintex Workflow. So I'm just going to click on this, and it's going to fire up the workflow. And you can see this Nintex Workflow Designer is very easy to use. Again, it's all in the browser. It's got a graphical user interface, so it's very much a drag and drop method to put together your workflows. So what I put together here is we have a workflow that looks up the employee list I showed you earlier. You can see if I click on the left-hand side here, we've got some integration. You could look up a number of different services. So we could query BCS. We can do LDAP queries. It's very powerful. For this example, we're just querying that list I created in the SharePoint site. So we query the list, and then we put together a collection of all the individuals. So just imagine this is a list. And then for each individual, we're extracting some key information about them from that list. We're setting up the document name. We're actually creating individual documents for each person. So if someone comes and wants to audit this down the line, there's actually a document for each person. We're not just relying on a list. And then something else we're doing here is we're actually setting permissions on the document. So this is a very secure solution. We can make sure that employees aren't going to be able to see each other's documents. You can imagine that if you're doing things like appraisals, pay review letters, security is key. We need to make sure that people aren't going to see each other's documents. So I'm going to close this workflow, and I'm actually going to kick off this task to create the documents. So I go to the drop-down. You can see there's an option at the top here to set up documents for signing. I'm going to click on this. Gives us a quick display of the task that it's going to complete. I'm going to click Start. And this is now looking through that list, and it's gone and created all the documents for our individuals. So let's go back to the HR policy list. And you can see here that we've now got an individual document for each person. We've pulled in some information from our employee list. Obviously, you could do this from your Active Directory. And we've also got a number of columns here related to the signatures. These are actually out-of-the-box columns that come with the CoSign connector. And once we've actually done a signature, I'm going to come back here and show you what information we get there. Now, as I'm an administrator, I can see all the documents here. I'm just going to flip over to another user I've got in a virtual machine. There's a test user called Jeremy Finkman, and he doesn't have, he's your normal employee, so he doesn't have access to all the documents. So if I click refresh here, renewal documents view. Sorry, this virtual machine is running on my laptop, so it's not lightning quick. Okay, so you can see he's only got one document. He can't see anyone else's. So what about the signature task itself? If I go back to my machine, what we've actually done is there's another workflow hidden behind this library that runs every time a document is created. So if I show you the workflow, you can see how easy this was to put together. You don't have to be a developer to do this. You know, any technical user who's familiar with SharePoint, familiar with workflow technologies, can put this together very quickly. You know, we put this together in half a day to a day. And you know, it's fairly complex, but using this workflow tool, you can really scale it out to be a complicated process. So for this process, when the document is created, we're assigning an employee signature task. This is the task here. This is all we needed to do to assign a CoSign signature task. Once you've got it all installed and set up, you can create a specific content type signature task, which is out of the box. So we just look up the employee name, we choose the content type, which is the workflow signature task, and that's job done. So what we've done for this workflow, we assign it to the employee. When they finish their signature, we pass it on to the manager. This is obviously a simple two-stage process. You could obviously do a number of different lookups. You could route this to multiple people. We could put reminders and all sorts of checks in this. We could say, if the employee hasn't signed this document within 2 weeks, send them a reminder. If in a further 2 weeks they haven't completed it, escalate it to their manager. The beauty of doing it with a workflow tool like this is you can really scale this to match your business needs. You don't have to change your business process for digital signatures. Using these tools, you can get this to map your processes. So what this has done, if I go back to Jeremy, it's actually assigned him a task. So we can have a look at the document, and Jeremy could sign the document from within here. Just wait for this to load. Sorry, this virtual machine seems to be struggling a bit today. Let me cancel that. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take you to the task. I've got the document loaded on another screen, so I'll just show you the document. It's a very simple code of ethics policy. It's got usual sort of text, and at the end we've created 2 signature fields, one for the employee and one for the manager. Okay. Bear with me 1 second. Demo gremlins, when I ran through this morning, it ran absolutely fine. Okay, so let's open the document. Okay, so let's try the task list. Okay, so in your firm, you would obviously send this as an email, but for the purpose of this demo, I've just created a task. This is using complete out-of-the-box functionality. There's been no custom dev here. So Jeremy Finkman's been assigned this digital signature task. He can come to his view, you can click on this, open it up. And this is where you can really see the benefits of these tools working together. It opens a preview window, so we can actually go through and read the document within the task. If we're happy with the document, we can go straight in and sign the employee field. You can see there's a drop down here on the right. Using the workflow, we can actually force the employee to only fill in one of the fields. So I can't change this to fill in another one. You can see there's functionality to delegate this. I'm not going to do that for this demo. We're just going to go in and sign it. So let's click on that. Okay, I'm just going to grab this username. We can set up a number of predefined reasons, but I'm just going to use the default one here and just say I agree. I'm going to paste in the username and put in the long password. And then I'm going to click on sign. And that is all we need to do to sign the document. We don't have to load up any applications locally. It's all done in the browser, and it's very quick if you're not running on a virtual machine. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so the digital signature required, task is completed, so that should now have gone on to the manager. Let me flip back to my screen. If we look at the employee list, we can see that Jeremy Finkman's manager is myself. So if I go through to my task list, I should now have a signature task for me and a signature task for Jeremy. And we can see that they're both there. Okay, so what I've done here, let's have a look back at the list. We can see these signature columns have now got some information in, so we can see that there's a valid signature. We can see the reason that the employee put in, and we've got some useful timestamp information. We've got some signature counts and the current status. So this would be a really good way for someone to manage the process. They don't necessarily have to open up the forms to see the signatures. I'll just show you something we can do here. So we can just click on the document. We've got a CoSign tab at the top, and I can just click to review the signatures. So I can actually see that this has been signed, and I can actually view the digital signature without opening the PDF file. So if you've got auditors coming in and they want to see this information, it's all there, and they can get to it very quickly. So I'm just going to open the certificate, and this is what Ronan described earlier. This has been assigned by ARCS. This is obviously a trial version, but you can see that the certificate's okay. This is a secure method. I'm going to click OK there, and so we've seen the signature in the document. I'm going to go in as the manager and sign my task. So if I go to the task list, we can see that manager signature is required. So I'm just going to click on this as well. And we can see Jeremy's signature in the file. We've got a graphical signature. I'm going to show you how easy that is to upload into your profile. And we can see that I've been directed straight to the manager's field. And I again, can't change that to be the employee. So I'm just going to sign this as the manager. Just grab my username. Just going to put in a comment. All looks okay. And put in my password. And click sign. And you can see that we've completed a two-step signature process, and you can see how quickly that was done. If you imagine how long this would take on paper, if these guys were in different offices, it would take a long time. So this really shows you how quick processes can be sped up using digital signatures, workflow technology, and ECM tools like SharePoint. So we can see we've got the latest information in the signature columns. What I've done for this demo is I've actually put a sort of home page sort of status screen. This would be something that you could assign to managers to keep a check on things. So we can see that there's one one signature task has been completed. There's a number 4 outstanding, and we can see the outstanding tasks, and we can also break it down by department, job roles, etc. So you can see how you could quickly flesh out quite a complicated application, and allow people to monitor and maintain it. So you saw, let's go back to the list. You saw the graphical signatures in the document. I'm just going to quickly show you how easy it is to actually set those up. So you can see I've got my signature in there. We've also got Jeremy's. I'm just going to log into a browser page for one of our test users and show you how easy it was to create that. So let's fire up a browser window and go to the CoSign site. And we've got a test user called Joe Bloggs, so I'm just going to put in his username. Oh. And I'm going to sign in. So this gives you a kind of welcome page where you can do a number of different things, but what we want to do is we just want to go and upload our signature. So I'm just going to click on My Signatures. You can see that it's got my original signature file in there, so you can obviously create a number of different signature files. I'm just going to upload the same one again, but I'm just going to show you how easy this is. So I'm just going to click on Upload. I'm going to call this New Sig. Click on Upload Files. And then you can just grab a JPEG file from your desktop. So let's grab the same one. Save, and there you go, done. It's that easy. And we've done this all without installing any software locally. So this would be, this is very quick. It's a very easy thing to roll out to your entire company. One final thing I'd like to show you, if the technology behaves itself, is it's the fact that you can do this on your mobile devices as well. So I've got a tool that lets me mirror my iPhone screen to my desktop. Let's just see if we can get this working. So to do this, we have to, our SharePoint environment has been set up so that it's public-facing, demo environment that is. So what you can see here on the left-hand side, let me a sec, it sometimes does this. Okay, that's a bit more like it. So we can see that I'm on my mobile device. Let's just see if we can make the screen a bit bigger. You can obviously do this with Android tablets, iPads. I'm doing it on an iPhone, so the screen is a bit tall, but you can see that we're on a SharePoint site. If I refresh this, we should see that there's a task in there for me. So you can see the task that I signed earlier. We can see that there's also a digital signature, my digital signature task. So I'm just going to click on this and show you that it can be done in the browser. We can even preview the document in the browser. This is a great way if you've got people that are out and about. They don't necessarily have access to a scanner or a printer. Normally that would hold up the process, but with a mobile device like this, they can just go straight in and sign it on the move. So we've got all the same functionality we had on the desktop. So I'm just going to go straight in and click Sign. I'm just going to say I agree. Okay, let's remember my password. Just say done. Let's sign this. And it's just going off and doing that. Okay, and there you go, we are done. So we can see that was signed a few seconds ago. If we go back to our dashboard, we can see that my signature has now been done and it's gone on to my manager for approval. So what you've got here was a very simple solution to put together, half day to a day's work, and utilising a number of different technologies. But I think it really shows the power of digital signatures and workflow technologies. So that's pretty much me done there, Ryan. Ronan, sorry.
Okay, Dan, thanks so much for that. We don't bemoan you for the gremlins you had. It's obviously it happens to the best of us. Just a quick point on the demonstration process that Dan just walked you through there. That actually was a demonstration of a live business process that was presented to us. The challenge was presented to us by one of our customers recently, where they needed to distribute customized documents, actually HR-based documents, to all staff members, and their current procedure was extremely manual and involved lots and lots of HR administration staff, both assembling the documents and managing the communications to staff, but then probably more importantly, trying to chase up the actions from those communications. So what Dan showed you there is an order of magnitude more efficient, where you essentially use one person instead of 10 or 20 people to put those documents together. The workflow solution is able to create the distribution lists and assemble the custom document content, send it out, request a signature and a review, or review and a signature, and get it back in the format and the method that you expect. So one of the trouble with sending documents to both internal and external parties for signing is that sometimes they don't send back the full document, or they make mistakes and so on. So this is not just quicker, but also more accurate and so on. So it's actually, that HR process is a great one to show, but it's just one of many different business processes that you can see. So what we showed you just then was the CoSign connector for SharePoint, where it interfaces with both Nintex. So there are CoSign draggable objects in the palette designer within Nintex. They're also available, by the way, in SharePoint Workflow and in K2 Workflow, and also the ability to then manage signature-based metadata or document property data in SharePoint. So you can drop a template into SharePoint that maybe has 4 signature fields, and it will detect automatically that there are 4 signatures. It's been signed by 2 people, and you can therefore tell the workflow engine to go off and obtain the remaining 2 signatures, whether those people are internal to the organization or indeed external. Okay, so I'll just quickly remind you, if you have any questions, I know some people have already asked some already, but type your questions into the question dialog box. You'll find that on the right-hand side of your screen. So yeah, Daniel just showed you using this on an iPhone device. You can use it on any platform you like. You can also, if you had SharePoint as a content repository, but for whatever reason you need to also sign on the desktop, you can do that as well. There are some desktop download components that put the ability to sign documents in Word and Excel applications. So if you're in those native applications, you can sign within 5 seconds as well, and then obviously save them back into the repository afterwards if you need to do so. Many people ask us about external signing, and there's the ability to either embed CoSign in, say, SharePoint in extranet mode as an externally facing site, which many of our clients do, or indeed into any other web environment. So you can build your own web portals and extranets, but also use our self-standing CoSign Hub, which is a sort of a signing portal for those people that don't want or don't expect to have an extranet. And you can alert external parties by email and get them to authenticate using 2-factor, for instance, email the username and send the password by SMS, for instance. And then it's very simple to sign documents. You just click on sign, click on done, and you're done. And that essentially enables internal, external document signing process to be completed in around 5 minutes typically, you should expect, and internal processes to be completed in about 5 seconds typically. So if you compare that with the current state of affairs, externally, if you talk to anyone like Gartner, Forrester, or AIM, or any of these people, they will probably tell you the average cycle time, response time to get an NDA, a sales contract, a procurement agreement, etc., is probably around 3 to 5 days on average to get that back to you. And so this is, replacing that kind of timeline with about 5 minutes. But all the while, you maintain control of the security, and importantly also, the architecture of this solution is such that the documents that you sign never leave your corporate environment. So if SharePoint is your repository of choice, or indeed any other repository as well, and you believe that your information assets are important to you to contain and to manage, they will always remain within your environment. And that is also valid for certain external signing processes as well, where you can host and manage collaborative environments in your DMZ, for instance, and not in the public cloud. Okay, so there are lots of other mechanisms you can combine. If you deal with clients in the public domain, they can use a combination of things like electronic devices and sign forms. We have a lot of people who do this, combine these external, if you like, members of the public signing procedures with then document governance with Workflow and SharePoint as well. So things like waiver forms, like this hospital release form, etc., are increasingly used as well. Okay, so I think I'm probably going to wrap up there, maybe take some questions here. But ultimately what we're showing you today is using standard off-the-shelf technologies, and I really want to stress that, that can be deployed in a lightning-fast timeline. So Dan mentioned that the SharePoint, Nintex, and CoSign environment that he showed you there, which was a demonstration, but actually it was a demonstration of a real-world scenario that was portrayed to us by a recent customer. And that took, about a day to do. So deploying these technologies is not a classic enterprise, technology engagement that requires months and months of work and planning. It can be done very rapidly. And ultimately, this is about reducing the need for paper to streamline business processes, make them faster. You should really expect to be able to sign a document in about 5 seconds if it's within the firewall. You have complete control over them. You can sign Office and PDF documents, but if any of you are in the construction engineering space and you use things like CAD drawings, so AutoCAD or Bentley MicroStation or these kind of applications, then we also are able to digitally sign those kind of document formats too. As well as financial transactions, we have a number of customers who sign XML data streams, for instance, as well for compliance reasons. So these are all key uses of signature technology with workflows and repositories. And we would urge you to engage with ARX and with PointBeyond, our partners, and talk to us about how you see these kind of technology, SharePoint workflows, signatures, being embedded in some of your core value-adding processes. And if there's a case for these technologies to improve your efficiency and cycle time, then please do talk to us. We'd love to engage and talk to you. Okay, so with that, I actually have forgotten to put Dan's email address on here, but mine is here. It's ronan.lavelle@arx.com. And Daniel is Daniel, D-A-N-I-E-L, .fowle, which is F-O-W-L-E, at pointbeyond.com. So if you have any burning SharePoint-based questions, I'm sure he would love to answer them. But while we've been on air here today, we have had a number of questions come in, and today's session is really all about you. So if you have any questions while we're answering these, now's your time. Type them into the question dialog box, and we'll pick those up. Okay, so the first question we have here is, what version of SharePoint does this solution support? And it's a really good question. So Ideally, it should be 2010 or higher. We recently came across a customer that had 2003 SharePoint, which didn't even really support viable workflow. So really, we're talking 2010 or higher, and also Office 365 from June this year onwards, to answer that question, if I'm going to preempt that. Okay, so the next question is it possible to sign Excel spreadsheets with the solution? Absolutely. We didn't show it today. We were showing mainly sort of PDF type documents, but any Office document format, so Word, Excel, PowerPoint even, but also if it's Excel, you can digitally sign the whole workbook or just a series of cells or just the worksheets that you're working in as well. So those are all things that, I mean, sometimes be as tactical as, like in my own role, submitting monthly expenses, you know, that need to be signed to confirm they're accurate. I just obviously sign those in 2 seconds with a digital signature these days. But it could be something more important like your departmental budgets or analysis of customer revenue scenarios and so on that may need to be audited at a later stage, you know, for whether it's Sarbanes-Oxley or any kind of disclosure purposes. So there are lots of reasons why you want to sign and confirm the rationale, the reason, and demonstrate the identity of the signer and their level of authority and so on. So these are lots of examples of where you can use CoSign. Okay, so there is a question about identity, but I'll just go over that. But the question is, how can you be sure of the identity of the signatory? So it is a very common question, but it is ultimately one that the global standards determine. And what they've determined is that the use of a digital signature submitted by a standards compliant certificate authority is basically the demonstration of identity. Now, I'm not sure who asked this question, or sorry, which country or jurisdiction you're coming from, but in certain European Union countries where you want to use digital signatures, local legislation actually mandates that you use a thing called a qualified digital certificate. And in a nutshell, this is not using the CoSign certificates that we generate, but it is actually using the CoSign server, but using an externally generated certificate. And those certificates, just so you know, behave like an electronic ID card. In certain countries like Germany or Italy, for instance, to get one of these qualified certificates, you need to be interviewed, maybe pay a fee, 100 euros or something, provide your passport and a copy of your electricity and gas bill, for instance. And if they are happy with your identity, they issue you essentially with a government-approved qualified certificate. And you can use those things to sign public information like tax information and so on, but increasingly commercial documents as well. So I think maybe that's the angle for that, and that is the ultimate proof of identity. Okay, can we use a hardware token for a certificate? And actually, the answer to that is no, you can't with CoSign. Actually, CoSign is a solution that was designed specifically to enable companies not to have to use hardware tokens like USBs or smart cards. So we are a centrally managed server-based solution where we have the notion of a highly secure HSM server, it's called. It's a high security, high accredited environment where the signing keys and the digital certificates are generated from the center in a highly controlled environment. And Christian, who asked that question, there are movements in the European Union to move more towards the concept that ARX has deployed CoSign today from sort of central server-based architectures. There are other reasons why hardware tokens should be used today and are used, but also increasingly in multi-factor environments, like multi-device environments, like using tablets and smartphones and Google Chromebooks or Apple MacBooks and so on. It's increasingly inconvenient to use a hardware token. So if it's something that your organization insists on, we're probably not a great fit for you at this point in time. But if you are looking for a centrally managed server-based environment, then CoSign is a great solution. And just to go further on that, it's not just a technical thing around certificates and encrypted signing keys. It's also a user administration thing. Our CoSign server is such that it deploys instantly. There's very little configuration. Once you hook it up to a user directory, like Microsoft Active Directory, for instance, it will synchronize automatically with those directories, and you can provision and delete user accounts automatically. So there's essentially no user administration with that kind of architecture. Okay, I think there are no more questions at this stage unless there are any last-minute ones. So as we're slightly over the hour, I just want to say thank you very much for your time today. Thanks for your questions, and we hope that we have answered them properly and showed you how you can use some of these key technologies. SharePoint, today we showed you Nintex Workflow with digital signatures like CoSign within a Microsoft SharePoint environment to streamline key business processes. And we would love to hear from you if you have any ideas as to how you think these kind of technologies could or should be used within your own organization. Please do contact us. My email is on the screen right now, but also info@arx.com or daniel.fowle@pointbeyond.com. So thanks very much once again, and we hopefully look forward to hearing from you in the near future. Thank you and goodbye.